welcome back to the Mr. MacNugget Show. I'm Mr. MacNugget. Stopped off after a long day at work to get a nitro cold brew, but this time I went with like a sweet cream inside there, which I don't usually do. It's good. I don't think I'd do it again though. Just too sweet for me. So as you know, as everyone knows, as you're sick of hearing, there's a lot going on in the world right now. And because of these things going on in the world right now, I haven't had a lot of time to record a video. So instead of skipping an upload on a Wednesday, I thought I would try something different. I recorded a couple of videos for another channel that my cousin has, well actually it's still social media accounts he still uses. It's called Go Nerd Yourself. And I made a few videos for that, and I'm pretty proud of a couple of them. One of which is about the mom and pop video store that I worked at when I was in high school. Considering I have a lot of movie fans that are watchers of this channel, even though the audience is quite small, I figure it might be an opportunity to get our minds off of the events that are currently playing out in our lives. So, why don't I just show you that video today? Fair warning. This was from a couple of years ago. I was a bearded, fluffier version of myself. So this is a different Mr. MacNugget than what you've seen on this show so far. Not that it makes that much difference, but just so you know. Enjoy!
For a run of about 5 years, I hosted a podcast, and one of my favorite episodes on that podcast was one that I hosted with a great friend of mine, a friend from high school, and someone who actually worked with me in our local mom and pop video store, and her name was Megan. And we had an opportunity to talk about a lot of our memories from working in the store. And so I wanted to share some of those mom and pop video store memories with you guys today, because I think it's a lost relic of the past, unfortunately. And in some ways, fortunately. You know, I'm not one of those people that's ever to say that the new, upcoming, technologically advanced type of stuff is bad just because it's not what I grew up with. Video on demand, having Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Instant and all of those platforms are really beneficial. Never in our lives did we ever think we could just sit on our couch at home and watch pretty much anything we wanted to, as much as we wanted to, or for a small rental fee. We were used to this. You went out, you chose what you wanted and brought it back to your home. So there are some benefits to that from a standpoint of convenience and really price for what you're getting. If you spend a lot of time watching Netflix, I think the subscription more than pays for itself, whereas you paid per watch here, kind of like you would if you were renting from Apple or Amazon or any of the online retailers that you can stream from nowadays. So I think I spoke a little bit about the positives of some of the new technology that we use for accessing video, but there's also some negatives that I think the old video days brought to us. And one is the connection, the connectedness of other people out in public. Go into a video store and ask what's popular, or I like this style of movie, what do you think? Sure, you can find reviews and stars and thumbs up, thumbs down, that type of stuff, but to actually talk to another human being, there's not really a scene for viewing movies outside of the theater anymore, and even at the theater it's not so much of a social scene anymore either. And I think that that's a major miss. So come along with me for this ride, because I kind of want to go piece by piece through what it was like working for a mom and pop video store, and what I kind of miss about it a little bit, and also kind of some of the nuts and bolts about how some of these old dinosaurs of video enjoyment were used. Firstly, let's talk about artwork. One of the things that I am really impressed by, and was one of the biggest pieces of what you would find in a video store, is the ability to pull something off of a shelf and take a look at it. Now I'm holding here A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. You're going to find a lot of these are horror titles I pulled out here, because when our store, it was called Primetime Video in Trenton, Ohio, when it went out of business, I kind of went haywire going after the horror titles from the horror section. So here I have A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and I'm in love with the artwork. I'm in love with the fact that it still has the horror sticker still on it. I'm in love with the fact that on the inside is still a perfectly rewound tape that has the "Don't be unkind, please rewind" sticker on it prominently right there. It's it's something. It's a piece of something that you can take with you. I even love the little details on these boxes too. I mean, it still says Primetime Video in marker, if you can even see that on there, and it still has the phone number. If you can make that out, I don't know if that belongs to a family in Trenton nowadays. I apologize in advance if that's your phone number. So let's talk a little bit about how the video store worked. We were a little bit different than your Blockbuster Videos of the world, your Hollywood Videos, because we had an even more primitive system for renting the videos to you than those places did. You would find on the back of a Blockbuster Video, for instance, a barcode that the cashier would scan, and that would rent the movie to you. We did not have barcodes. Instead, what we had were numbers that you had to key in manually into the computer that you'll find on each and every one of these cassette tapes to take home with you. We'd have to punch those numbers in and send them to you. Now, the difference was, if you were getting a new release movie, it would come in a brown case similar to this. Now, I actually lost my outer cover to E.T. when I was a kid. So this tape has E.T. in it now, or this case does. But from the video store, you would get a brown case like this from the behind the shelf. So on the shelf here, you would have this brown case, and in front of it, for example, you would have, let me find you a good example here. Let's pretend like Friday the 13th Part 8 is a new release. I know, it's not. It would sit on the shelf like so. And then on the inside of this, instead of a tape, you'd have a styrofoam insert, and that insert would sit right in the front. And behind it would be between 8 and 10 of these. And these would be what you would take home with you. And yes, they sat on the shelf. It wasn't one of those things where you had to come to the counter to get them. So they would sit behind like this. You would go up to the shelf, and all of our new releases would be on the outside walls of the store. You'd go up, lift this one out of the way, grab this, and then reset this one in front of the rest of them on the shelf. And this is what you would take to the cashier. On the side of these cassettes would be a sticker similar to the one here on Children of the Corn, except it would have the same 4-digit number and then a 0.1 through 10. So there'd be 10 copies of this, and it would be 1708.1 through 0.10 basically, and that would be the limit to the stock for new releases we had. And then once the movie had made its run, again pretending like Friday the 13th Part 8 is a new release, once it's made its run, it's no longer considered a new release based on popularity, frankly. If it was still checking out like gangbusters, it would stay on the new release wall until it started slowing down. And then they would basically sell off the remaining stock, leave 1 or 2 copies, and they would actually put them in their original artwork. But here's where things get upsetting for the collector in all of us. I'm okay with it now because it has memories from the store, but as you can see from this copy of Friday the 13th Part 7, the original box was taken and then it was cut on the sides so that it would fit into this clamshell box here to be seated out on the shelf, and it would only have the 4-digit number on it at that point if we kept 1 copy. If we kept 2, it would be the 4-digit number 0.1 and 0.2. So very rarely, especially for some of the genre movies though, do we ever keep more than 1 on hand. So you'll find on these horror movies that there was just the 4-digit number. Now you could go way back into our collection, and this movie store started, I would imagine, probably in the late 80s or early 90s, way before I had worked there. And so you could find movies such as these two here, which is the first 2 Halloween films. And these movies are interesting because they were purchased way after they had released on home video. And so we ended up with some really cool, original media released artwork on this one, and the original Halloween 2. I love this box art. It's just incredible. But since this would have come in way early in the store's run, you'd actually find that some of our numbers would be 3-digit numbers. They hadn't made it to the 4 digits yet. This one, to me, I took a photo for this video of the inside of this tape. One of the pieces I find so incredibly interesting about these original or early VHS tapes is that they are absolutely heavy by comparison to a later release VHS tape. This has got some heft to it. I couldn't tell you what kind of shape this is in. I remember watching this as a kid, and it actually looks to be in pretty decent shape, but I remember watching this very tape as a kid the first time I ever saw Halloween. So when the store started going out of business, I had to lap this one up very quickly, and I did because this is like the holy grail for me. And it was my first viewing experience, was this very cassette tape rented from the store that I would later work in as I, grew older. So sentimental value here. Would I love to see this box intact? Absolutely. But considering where it came from and what it meant to me, it's kind of nice to have it in the shape that it's in. So that's basically the process of how things would go from new release to going into the middle of the store into individual racks per genre. So you would have your action, you would have your horror, you would have your comedies, and they would all be in their individual sections in the middle of the store. And that's where a lot of my education on movies came from, which is what I think a lot lacks of scrolling through a Netflix feed currently. You look through a Netflix feed and you can see anything that you want to see, but you can't hold it in your hand. You can't look at the pictures on the back. You can't, there's just the tactile feel of holding it in your hands. I know it sounds completely crazy, but there's something about it that is just so comforting. Is that weird? Yeah, it's kind of weird, but true nonetheless. I'd like to know what your memories are from the video store. Did you have a mom and pop video store? Did they handle their store the way that we handled our store? Did you get a membership card on a piece of paper simply run through a laminator that you could buy at Staples at the time? That's what we did. Were you being hounded by phone calls to return your overdue movies? I'm looking at you. I never made those calls. I left that to Megan. And with that, I think we can leave this one right where it is. I'd love to hear your stories about the video store. I'd love to hear your stories if you've never been to a video store. And do you guys have do the younger folks this generation have a movie viewing scene outside of the movie theater like we did? Did you have no reason to get in the car and load up and go to the video store on a Friday night. So what do you do? I really want to know.
Thanks for stopping by the Mr. MacNugget show. I know it's kind of loud in the car today, but I figure I might want to just shoot some video while I have the chance. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and click the bell icon. I'd love for you guys to be around for the next uploads, and until next time, have a good one.